What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a Lost Dogs Top 11, little supersized top 10 for you, brought to you by a friend, longtime supporter and patron of the channel, Scott. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate everything you bring and appreciate all the things that the patrons bring and all that support. Makes this thing happen, so if you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. Lost Dogs has appeared on some of Scott's other lists, but let's let him talk about Lost Dogs and their history and why he brought this list. He says the Lost Dogs is a band comprised of frontmen from 4 critically acclaimed Christian alternative bands. Assembled in 1991 at the suggestion of the record label of Terry Scott Taylor and his band Daniel Amos, the intention was to record one album as a novelty for fans of Christian alt music. So in 1991, coming together were Taylor of Daniel Amos, Mike Rowe of the 77s, Derry Daughtry from The Choir, and Gene Eugene of Adam Again. Some folks consider the Lost Dogs a, quote, supergroup, by which I think they mean they are the gathering of 4 uber-talented singer-songwriters and frontmen for groundbreakingly innovative bands. Of course, this is an apt description of the Dogs, but another undeniable supergroup called the Traveling Wilburys preceded the Dogs and were made up of bona fide legends Dylan, Harrison, Orbison, and Petty. Now that's a supergroup. So calling the Dogs a supergroup might be overstating things a bit, but not because they aren't superior musicians and legends themselves, albeit comparatively obscure among a much smaller fan base. I obviously love these guys and the music they made together, but they clearly seem to enjoy each other as well. What started as a one-off novelty project developed into more than 20 years of close friendship and creativity that produced more than 10 records. The Lost Dogs suffered a devastating blow to their lineup following their 2000 release of Gift Horse, their 4th album, when good friend and bandmate Gene Eugene passed away in his sleep at the still young age of 39. The Dogs continued on, but with a noticeable hole in their lineup and a clear sense of melancholy in their music. Gene's distinctive voice and character had been a big factor in the Dogs' unique sound, and he was and continues to be sorely missed. But the Dogs carried on, eventually inviting into the fold Steve Hindalong, Derry's songwriting and band partner from The Choir. Even so, Gene's presence was felt long after his departure, the first released after his death being the Dogs' 5th release, Real Men Cry. Included on the album is a Terry Scott Taylor song, Three-Legged Dog, a good-natured and lively tribute to Eugene, communicating through metaphor that the band clearly isn't what it was, but they'll continue on nonetheless, an old worn-out dog minus one leg. This list of 11 songs are some of my favorites from the Dogs, representing most of their releases through the years. While the band shared songwriting duties, every song on this list except one was penned by Terry Scott Taylor. I didn't set out to choose only his songs, it just turned out that way. So the list could be officially considered as my Terry Scott Taylor list part 2, because we got one up of Terry Scott Taylor already. The vocals, however, are pretty evenly divided among the Dogs. The style of music on this list bounces from Americana to bluegrass to ballads. The subject matter of Taylor's lyrics varies greatly and ranges between tones of grave seriousness to abject silliness, but always with an eye towards the life lived under the ever-watchful view of God and an unwavering commitment to serving Jesus and learning to see the world and the people around us through his gracious and merciful eyes. And as always with my list, there's no best or worst here. In fact, if pressed to do so, I would have trouble conceiving a list that included bad songs by anyone. Why waste time with unlistenable music? Is that a real word? Yeah, it is, and I agree. So have at it. As always, I'll leave the favorites to you. It's just a reminder, the music will not be in the video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. I'll be following on with the lyrics as I always do. And also, and up front, if you haven't watched one of these videos before that Scott has done, Scott's a Christian, obviously, from reading his write-up. I'm a Christian, so we're viewing all these songs through a Christian eye. So if you're a Christian, I'm glad you're here. If you're not a Christian, I'm glad you're here. Enjoy. Let's jump into the first song. We got Israelites and Okies from the Old Angel album in 2010. Scott says, in 2009, the Dogs embarked on a trip across America, traveling down the legendary Route 66 or Route 66, depending on how you want to say it, in a borrowed RV. I've been down much of a Route 66. Along the way, they visited all the weird and cheesy tourist traps. There are many, plus a number of visits with a variety of people. This album, Old Angel, which refers to Route 66 itself, is a travelogue filled with metaphors and direct references to their travels and the people and places they encountered. This track's the opening cut on the album and sets the stage not only for the record, but for our list as we move through these Lost Dog tunes. Here, songwriter Terry Scott Taylor includes himself and his companions, which includes you and me, in the company of those now legendary travelers, the Israelites of Exodus and the Okies of the Great Depression in America. The metaphor is clear, depicting this journey of our lives as littered with people and challenges and difficulties with some progress and good times sprinkled in. Taylor's lyrics acknowledge our faults and failures with the overarching notion that we are on a journey that is eventually taking us, who love and trust in Jesus, to the promised land. All right, let's check it out. So the first thing I notice on this song, Israelites and Okies, is just a fantastic musicianship, right? I mean, I think we start off there with a banjo just at the very start, but then we get into, Terry Scott Taylor sounds great on the lead vocals. Pretty much everybody's on the guitars. But yeah, it just sounds so good. The quality of it, the production of it. As far as the lyricism, I mean, it's about what Scott said about, kind of intertwining the life that, we see in the Old Testament, in the book of Exodus in particular, but in the early part of the Old Testament, contrasting that with the life we live now, the Okies or whoever else, right? I mean, not only from the Great Depression, but what we live now. There's not a lot of difference, right? The setting's different, the technology's different, all that stuff, but the same problems exist. And he talks about, just all kinds of good lines in here. The pre-chorus, I want to travel this broken road strapped to the mercy seat, paying strict and holy attention to the people I meet, which is something sometimes in our busy life or a judgmental life, we forget about actually focusing on the people around us. The chorus, if I'm going to show you heaven, first I've got to show you hell. And songs about exiles in a garden before and after we fell. Oh, Israelites and Okies, may we all travel well. So we're all in this together. Verse 2, I liked heavy pieces of old stone tablets in our backpacks weigh us down. The Ten Commandments, right, the law. And then we broke into every carved word, God carved word there. We still carry them around. So we're still not tossing them out, even though we know we can't keep them. We attempt to. So yeah, I mean, just a really good song in here, really good instrumentation and musicianship. Great way to start this list. Next up, we have Blessing in Disguise from the Gift Horse album in the year 2000. Scott says, one of the most common and difficult questions we humans express, whether we're Christians or atheists or somewhere between the two, is a mystery of why we face such difficult and often unbearable pain and hardship. Oddly, we rarely think to ask the opposite question of why we are sometimes fortunate enough to enjoy good health and flourish in relationships and finances. Still, the truth is that pain hurts and we'd rather avoid it. Throughout his songwriting history, Taylor addresses this issue in all manner of ways and from a variety of perspectives. And as with most subjects of his writing, he faces head-on issues many of us would rather avoid. With this track, he brings to our attention the hidden benefits of our suffering, benefits that come straight from the hand of our Lord. As I mentioned in the intro, it wasn't long after the release of this album that the Dogs lost bandmate Gene Eugene, who passed unexpectedly. Eugene shares the lead vocals here with the other three Dogs. Blessing in Disguise, cool that they all share vocals on here, but the message of the song is fantastic. We start with Mike Rowe on the vocals. How often we do spot the angels or see the unseen hand. Most times are tough, the going rough, like there never was a master plan. Those steadfast doors don't open. And you pray, but you don't understand because you ask for these things and they don't happen and you don't get it in the moment, right? And then the chorus is the same all the way through, but I'll just give it to you once. You've got to hold fast. The hope that's in you, don't always trust your eyes. Sometimes it takes a long time to see it as a blessing in disguise, and that is life, man. And, if you're praying for something and it doesn't happen, it might be 10 years later, 15 years later, you look back and go, oh, that's why. Or you may never see it while you're on this earth, but when you go and be with Jesus for all eternity, you'll be able to see and reflect and go, oh, there was a reason for that. Then Terry Taylor comes on, we live upon this dark surface, and God, he moves upon the deep. What is concealed will be revealed. Kind of what I'm talking about, what you don't get, you will get eventually. There is no promise he won't keep. Still, we're confused by the shadows. We're awake now, but we're half asleep. In other words, we can't get it. Why do these bad things happen to us? Why do the good things not happen? And then Derry comes in with just a bridge. Sometimes the dark can move our hearts to long for the light of the sun, and our ways don't become his ways until we are undone, right? So sometimes we got to be broken. That was the way it was in my life, not only with me being personally afflicted, but once Trey got sick and has had to deal with some chronic health issues since he was 14 and he's almost 27. That broke me. That made me totally undone to rely on the Lord totally and give everything to him that he knows and I don't. So I think, it's all about perspective, right? We all need to have perspective, but it's hard to have perspective, right? You can't appreciate something totally until it's taken away from you. And then it's like, oh, I should have really appreciated that. But you can't really live your life going through, I got to have total appreciation for my health or for my finance or for my relationship. you can't live that way, but when it's taken away, it becomes magnified, right? And then you go, oh man, I should have really appreciated that. And if you ever get whatever that is back, you appreciate it more. And I think you're more thankful to the Lord for that. And then verse 3, Eugene, and after you've been broken, you may not realize that you are grace to the brokenhearted and a blessing in. You are a blessing in disguise. So once we're broken, and the Apostle Paul talks about this a lot in the New Testament, but once we're broken, then we can become a blessing to those who are broken. Paul talks about, I don't have to have what you have to identify with you, right? I just have to have been broken, so to speak. So a fantastic song, a song I super identify with. Next up is Why is the Devil Red from the Scenic Routes album in 1992. Scott says, most of my pastoral life was spent serving in Pentecostal and charismatic flavored churches. One aspect of the theology of such churches, at least in rhetoric and in practice, has to do with the power of Satan in the life of the Christian. The reasoning goes something like this. The devil is waiting for you around every corner and under every table for the chance to make your life miserable. While the Bible is clear that Satan and his minions are real and the power is considerable, albeit limited by God himself, many of us have taken this idea to outrageous and silly extremes. With this track, Taylor addresses this notion and waxes downright snarky in asking some good questions and making even better observations. There are some dated references in the lyrics that may escape the younger listener. Taylor asks about the devil, does he look like Robert De Niro with them big long fingernails? Here he references the movie Angel Heart from 1987, in which De Niro plays a character named Lucifer. His character maintains very long and pointy fingernails for reasons that escaped me when I saw the movie many years ago. The song also mentions Charo, a strangely popular Spanish celebrity from the 80s who used to jiggle and wiggle as though dancing. She would make the talk show rounds and seemed to have no actual talent, except like some of our current celebrities. She was famous for being famous. I remember Charo, she was on the Love Boat all the time, those of you who are of an advanced age like myself and Scott. Finally, Taylor also asked about the devil, does he sing like Jerry Vale? Jerry Vale was a nightclub crooner a la Frank Sinatra, especially popular with my mom's crowd in the 60s and 70s. A really irritating voice. Hey, that's Scott words, not mine, for all you Jerry Vale super fans out there. All right. Why is the Devil Red? I mean, I'm not really going to go through the lyrics. You know, it's a bluegrass song. Or an Americana, I'd go more bluegrass here. I mean, you got, of course, the fiddle, the pedal steel. You also got a bodhran. I don't even know what that is. You got the snare. You got all kinds of stuff going on. Terry Scott Taylor gives you the main vocals, but I mean, the other guys come in. Why is the devil red? And all the different ways that we show the devil, right? You give the devil a pitchfork horn, sulfur corns, hot breath, a tower, about 15 toes. You give him his devil power. So yeah, just kind of a satire. While not dismissing the devil by any means, just a satire of how silly it sometimes gets on how we depict Satan. Now we come to our fourth track on the list, Pray Where You Are, from Little Red Riding Hood in 1993. Scott says, on my previous list of Terry Scott Taylor tunes, I included a Lost Dog song he wrote called Breathe Deep. The verses were a rapid fire list of practically every kind of person. This track has a similar feel as Taylor encourages, no matter who we are or what we do, to pray where you are. I think that the notion of praying without ceasing is at the heart of Taylor's message. Knowing him as I do through his body of work, he might have in mind the idea that we should always stay connected to our Savior, regardless of our station in life, our current circumstances, good or bad, or of theological distinctions. Simple prayer is at the heart of our relationship with God. It's very well said by Scott. Pray where you are, and as referenced a little bit by Scott in the Bible, you know, Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, pray without ceasing. So that's what the boys are trying to get to here. They all kind of share the lyrics. I think the guitar works really good on this one. It's credited to all four of them. But he just gives the dichotomy, right, in the good times and the bad times, in the cancer wards, the presents, and the bars, on the earth and on the moon, in the closet in your room, in the flop houses, the think tanks, and the farms. Just all of those things. Prayer where you are, in the fields and the factories, and there's no limits, rules, or boundaries. At work or school or driving in your car, pray where you are. In the strip joints, in the church, on a desperate lost child search, on the airplanes, and the back roads, and the rails. You know, in the penthouses, and the pool halls, and the jails, the criminal with no one left to con. Just all of these different things, right? In the desert, off the shore, in peacetime, in a war. In other words, no matter what, because I think most of us tend to pray more fervently in bad times, which is totally understandable. But you should be praying in those good times as well. Be thankful. But sometimes when things are going really well, I don't say we lose sight of God, but you know, we kind of don't see him as clearly. So I think that's kind of one of the the points of this song as well. Now we're up to the fifth track, If It Be Your Will, from the Green Room Serenade in 1996. Scott says this track is a cover of a Leonard Cohen tune he recorded in 1984. Cohen is quoted about this song as saying, "I don't know which side everybody's on anymore, and I really don't care. There's a moment when we have to transcend the side we're on and understand that we are creatures of a higher order. It doesn't mean that I don't wish you courage in your struggle. There is on both sides of the struggle men of goodwill. That is important to remember, on both sides of this struggle. Some struggling for freedom, some struggling for safety, and solemn testimony of that unbroken faith which binds a generation one to another. I sing this song, If It Be Your Will." So that's some great advice from Leonard that was the case back in the day and is the case now. And I mean, Cohen is just an absolute lyrical genius. We got a ton of Leonard Cohen up on the channel. Let's check this one out. If It Be Your Will. I'll tell you what, man, Leonard Cohen could write a freaking song, right? The guys do a great job with it. I mean, and they handle it with the respect, that it deserves, I guess I would say. There's a violin in here. Everything is kind of dialed back. There's a pedal steel, but it's real subtle in there. The guys kind of share in the lyrics. If it be your will that I speak no more and my voice be still as it was before, I will speak no more. I will abide until I am spoken for you, if it be your will. And that word abide carries great gravity in the Bible, right? It's almost hard to even describe the word abide. It's used in several areas. It's this following and this commitment that you can't even really almost describe. That is the abide. But so he's going to be quiet if he needs to be. But in verse 2, if it be your will that a voice be true from this broken hill, I will sing to you from this broken hill. All your praises they shall ring. If it be your will, let me sing. So I'll be quiet, or I'll sing from the highest rooftop, so to speak. And then from this broken hill, all your praises they shall ring. If it be your will to let me sing. And then if it be your will, if there is a choice, let the rivers fill, let the hills rejoice. Let your mercy spill on all these burning heats in hell. If it be your will to make us well. And then lastly, Gene Eugene as the last verse. And draw us near and bind us tight, all your children here in rags of light. In our rags of light, I'll dress to kill, and in this night, if it be your will. Yes, I just read you the entire song because it's that well written, and the guys do a great job with it. I would guess we're going to shift gears a little bit here, but I don't know. Only One Bum in Corona Del Mar from The Lost Cabin and the Mystery Trees in 2006. Scott says, Terry Scott Taylor possesses a rare gift for communicating difficult truths in easily digestible ways. The next two songs are ideal examples of this. This track is spoken and sung with a decidedly whimsical tone. It's almost as if a bunch of guys got together in a bar to remember someone they used to know, and the whole crowded bar joins in on the memory. The deeper message here is that we who are financially fortunate are too often guilty of looking down our noses at those who clutter our pristine existence with their less than elegant selves. This is a prime example of how and why Taylor excels as a messenger. Rather than directly preaching to us about the evils of self-righteousness, he slides a message in through a downright clever and funny song. Ouch, Scott says. All right, Only One Bum in Corona Del Mar. Great description by Scott of what this is about, and just a fun song, almost a Jimmy Buffett type sound to it. The words that are spoken in here are always a spoken word is when they're talking about the bum. They live in Corona Del Mar, this beautiful area. There's only one bum there. Everyone's so rich, they're lighting their cigars with $100 bills. So it's kind of pointing out the hypocrisy that we sometimes as Christians have. For sure. One of the parts where they talk about the bum, the deli gives him free sandwiches. He stops there about 3 times a week. Then he'll shimmy behind dolphin-shaped hedges where he likes to take a leak. Sometimes land him coffee, money, or religious tracts. Or at a distance, speak a kind word. And he'll grin, and then behind our backs, he'll discreetly flip us the bird. You thought I was going to do it. I'm going to do that to you. But later on, they say he disappeared, right? Some say he's in Fresno. Some say he drowned. Some say he was baptized and spreading the word of the Lord around. Some say he's the richest man in the world. They do miss him, but they all lived happily ever after in Corona Del Mar. Now, as you see below, we go to Bad Indigestion from Little Red Riding Hood in 1993. Scott says, in November of 1978, San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and City Councilman Harvey Milk were gunned down in their offices by fellow councilman Dan White. There's a movie about Milk. At White's ensuing trial, his attorney argued that White was a victim of eating too many Twinkies and drinking too many sugary sodas. His diet, the argument went, contributed to severe depression and to his state of mind when he committed the murders. While this became a relatively minor aspect of White's defense, the press pounced on the idea and the term Twinkie defense was born. I've never heard of this. With this song, Taylor takes the notion of blame shifting to ridiculous extremes and implicitly asks us to look within and identify our own tendencies to shift the blame that in truth lies squarely on our own shoulders. Bad indigestion, just, saying the different things that we use for excuses instead of taking responsibility. The first verse is the whole Twinkies thing, and Michael Rowe starts out, and Terry Scott Taylor, what we do. Well, would we do the things we do if without poison in our blood? Would we hurt our fellow man while consuming all this crud? Break our vows, go to war, put mankind to shame. If a chemical imbalance weren't coursing through our veins, so it's not our fault, right? You got a banjo in here. It's little country, little Americana, little bluegrassy, right? Whenever you hear the banjo, you kind of want to identify bluegrass. I would say it's more country than anything else, but just a fun little tune. Got 4 songs left. We got Honeysuckle Breeze from the Gift Horse album in 2000. Scott says, a shorter tune at around 3 minutes. Taylor here calls us back to our first love and the joy that awaits all who live in relationship with Jesus Christ. Drawing upon imagery from the biblical Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, his songwriting reveals Taylor as a thoughtful poet and demonstrates his longing for the reunion, awaiting everyone who loves Jesus and looks forward to what C.S. Lewis calls our own far-off country. Honeysuckle Breeze, just an absolute total difference between this and the last song. This is much more melancholy, soft, like what it needs to be with the lyricism in here of the Honeysuckle Breeze, which I think is really a representative of almost the Holy Spirit. We start off with Derry with the lead vocals on this one. A melancholy ghost moves outside your window, certain that brushing past your curtain and dancing through the leaves will remind you of your first love, who held you warm and tender and gently asked you to surrender to the honeysuckle breeze, to his will, right? And the first bridge with Gene Eugene, far away you've wandered, and soon forget the one who loves you still. In the ruins of the precious gifts you've squandered, rise again and breathe again his will. That hope that no matter how bad we messed up, if we're in Jesus, there's still a place for us there. He is not forsaking us. So just a really well done song. Now we're up to our 9th track, Reasonable Service from the Green Room Serenade in 1996. In November of 2020, Taylor sent his Patreon friends a home-recorded version of the song with the simple explanation that the song is packed with biblically based concepts. He sarcastically asserts that if one listens to the lyrics and doesn't understand what's being conveyed here, they obviously don't possess spiritual discernment. The lyrics are rooted in the passage from Romans 12:1. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual or reasonable worship. Reasonable Service, the most, as far as arrangement-wise, the most kind of by the book, just done song that we've had here in a little while. No influence on anything, just kind of the alt arrangement on here, although we do have the Hammond B3 organ. We got a little violin in there, not a lot, a little pedal steel, but not a lot, just kind of a straight down the middle. This song is, for me, the most biblically driven song. Like, there's all kinds of books of the Bible just put into this. I'm not even going to get into all of them, but he talks about in every soul an altar stands. It's all of them singing at the start. Thereon dwells all in the heart of a man. O consuming fire, lay waste the dross upon this table purges. That's Hebrews 12:9. For God, our God is a consuming fire. Though the sacrifice will fear, right? Forsake us not, Lord, draw us near, for we never fail to find you here in our reasonable service. So that's kind of where Romans 12:1 comes on. And then now the least that we can do is the least you require. And then we get cleanse these earthen vessels, Lord, of every false desire. That's 2 Corinthians 4:7. Help us in our unbelief. That's Mark 9:3 and 23 and 24. And, in the measure of our faith, let our minds keep on renewing, not conforming to this world until the world's undoing. That's Romans 12:2, right? The overarching theme of the song is Romans 12:1. We continue on with 12:2, which says, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You may prove what that is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. Even down in verse 3, to count as loss as we hold dear is Christ in us, increasing. That's Philippians 3, 7, and 8. You get to live as Christ, to die as gain. That's Philippians 1:21. So you get the idea, guys. It's just so driven not only by one book of the Bible, but by all kinds of stuff in the New Testament woven in here. So that is fantastic. Got 2 songs left. We've got No Shadow of Turning from Real Men Cry in 2001. Scott says another short one at 2:35, but it packs an important theological punch. Taylor's lyrics spring from James 1:17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Here Taylor reassures us that God doesn't change ever, is always faithful to his promises, will never turn his back on us, and will see to it that the good work begun in us will be completed. And I will tell you, there is not many promises in the Bible more encouraging and reassuring than that. No Shadows of Turning, Derry on lead vocals there, and it just is what Scott described. It starts out, you do not sleep and forever keep what you have begun. The song's been played and the promise made will not be undone. And then the chorus, no shadow of turning, which is the James 1:17. You're the same today as yesterday. That's Hebrews 13:8. Because love won't let you turn away. You see it all and not a sparrow falls out beyond your hand. That's in Matthew 10. So yeah, just and in faith and hope will abide. There's that word I mentioned many songs ago, abide. Love never failing. So really good song, great message. And now we're up to our last track, our 11th track on Lost Dogs Top 11. Now remember, Scott did not put these in order of what he liked worst to best, but this is our last track, Traveling Mercies, from the Old Angel album in 2010. Scott said, I intentionally bookended with this list with the 2 songs at either end. Our first song, Israelites and Okies, reminds us the long and often difficult road that winds both behind and before us in our lives. With this final track, Taylor invokes an old and almost cliche phrase that has been employed by praying people for decades, if not longer. Whenever a loved one or a good friend is about to embark on a trip to most anywhere, the prayer that goes up for them is that God would grant traveling mercies, implying that God would go before them and protect them from any hazards and calamities that might waylay them. As with the opening song, the metaphor is clear for you and me. Simply put, as we face the unknown of our lives, we should stay close to our Lord and trust Him to pave the way for us. As I look back on my own life, Scott says 63 years so far, I will never know, nor do I want to know, what tragedies, calamities, and troubles I've avoided because of God's hand making a clearer way before me. Kind of a cool way to end that song, right? You hear a horse galloping slowly, you hear a train engine, or maybe a ship, maybe both, with that traveling mercies to play on the theme. But it's not really traveling mercies, it's like we're traveling through this life, right? Like Scott said at the beginning, Lord, grant us traveling mercies wherever we roam. We'll trust the guardian angels to our side have flown, blessing our journey with traveling mercies, and lead us gently through the dangers unknown. Traveling mercies, and Lord, lead us safely home. Now, that could be home to our earthly home, or it could be home to our heavenly home, right? Let's see. Down each highway and byway, and kindness to strangers may we ever increase. Find wonder and laughter, traveling mercies. Find Christ in the faces of the greatest and least. Traveling mercies in troubled times, Lord, be our peace. So just a really well done song. Derry on the lead vocals there as well. Got a little harmonica action. I mentioned at the start, you got a mandolin, even got a glockenspiel in here. So all kinds of instrumentation on this beautifully arranged song. And now we come to my favorite tracks. I say this every list of Scott's. It's hard to pick favorite tracks in there. All these songs were written with the intent of honoring the Lord, so it's hard to pick faves. But here we go. Honorable mentions, Israelites and Okies, our very first song on there. Reasonable Service. The lyrics were so biblically based. It was fantastic. Only One Bum in Corona Del Mar. I mean, it is a catchy song. My faves are going to be Blessing in Disguise and If It Be Your Will, the Cohen original song. So, appreciate Scott for bringing this list. Let me know, guys, what you think of the songs in this list. What are your favorites? Any other suggestions I should check out from Lost Dogs? And until next time, guys, I will see you.